So it's finally here, the EOS RP. So a couple of weeks ago I made a video about the RP, and I basically said that it's a great camera for beginners, but for most beginners it still might be a little too expensive at $1,300. And I also said that the smaller weight and size advantage of this camera will not matter too much until Canon comes out with more smaller and lighter and more affordable RF mount lenses. And I really didn't think that video would get so much attention, and I'm a YouTuber with 2,000 subscribers and I was expecting it to get maybe 200 views at most. But then it's been trending at the top of the search for a few days, and I could tell that a lot of people were really excited about this camera. So although I said in the video that I probably won't be purchasing the camera myself, but I decided to pick one up so I can give it a more fair test. And let me just tell you, once I get my hands on something and once I get really used to it, there are not that many cameras that I really hate. I've shot with Sony, I've shot with Nikon, and now I shoot pretty much exclusively Canon. And one thing I've learned from that is that choosing a camera is an extremely personal choice. It's actually a lot like choosing a car. Like, you know, we don't all go for the most powerful or the fastest cars available, or the most reliable or the most fuel efficient. We just all kind of weigh our options and then choose one that looks the best. And just because my neighbor has a baby and buys a minivan, I'm not gonna judge them for buying a minivan. It's their money, it's their choice, it's their life. And same with cameras. There are many aspects of the camera that you just cannot compare with numbers on a piece of paper. But after I do my full review, I'm going to decide if I'm going to keep this or not. And I think that will mostly be up to my comparison with this camera with the 60 Mark II, a little slightly bigger camera with basically the same sensor and a bigger battery. So just keep that in mind. Just because I don't end up keeping this camera, it might be a bad camera for you, and you're gonna have to make that decision yourself. And like I said, if you have a good reason to buy this camera, just go for it. It doesn't really matter what I or anybody else says. Yes, it's missing some features, but you know, it's a beginner camera and I'm gonna be fair about it, and let's see what happens. So I just got this yesterday, and I don't know what's going on in California, but it's been raining non-stop for the past 3 months in the whole winter. So I haven't had a lot of chance to go outside with it yet. So my first impressions so far, let's get this box out of the way. So the body itself, I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. I still stand by what I said about the body being too small to be used with EF lenses with an adapter, because when you add an adapter to a camera that is so small and light, when you add an EF lens, here's a 35 f2 IS, which is not a humongous lens, and when you add it to the adapter, you're adding about an inch of distance in front of the camera. So you're not just adding the weight of the lens itself. Because you're moving the center of gravity, the lens is going to feel a lot heavier than it really is. And some might argue that, you know, this is a beginner camera, no one's going to pair this up with a big heavy EF lens. And my argument to that is, if you're a beginner searching for a first camera, are you really gonna spend $1,300? And my second argument is, if you're more of an intermediate level photographer who's maybe looking to upgrade to full frame or switch to mirrorless, are you really going to pair up your $1,300 full frame camera with a 5.6 kit lens? I mean, what's the point of that? So that's just one aspect of the camera that's a bit confusing to me, but again, personal opinion. Oh, another thing that I noticed, I also got this grip. This is an $80 grip that Canon sells with this camera, and the B&H was having a promotion, so I got this for free with the camera, and I really like it. It's really well made. I love the build quality, and I love the way it's designed, the way you can open up the bottom to access the battery and the SD card. I like everything about it. I wish it was just a tiny bit bigger, and I also wish Canon sold this for the EOS R too, but I guess I can always get a battery grip for that camera. So if you're someone who's worried about the smaller size with the camera and the grip, I highly recommend getting the grip. When it's paired up with a native RF mount lens like this one, it's actually not too bad. I could live with this, especially with the grip. But once you add the adapter and a similar sized EF lens, it starts to get a little uncomfortable, but again, not a deal breaker. Just try this out before you buy this camera if you're worried about it. Here's the 35mm f1.8 macro lens for the RF mount, and if you're planning on investing into the RF mount system, this is probably the first prime lens that you're going to buy, and also this is right now the cheapest lens that they offer for the RF mount at about $500. So with a lens like this, no issues whatsoever, no problems. They just need to make more of these. And another thing that I noticed, like I mentioned last time, they got rid of the top LCD screen and they replaced it with the manual dial, which is great. Another great decision. They got rid of the multifunction touch bar in the back. Fantastic. I think everyone hated it. But I guess the only problem is they didn't replace it with any other dial. So in my opinion, right now the camera is one dial too short. The RF mount lenses also gives you this additional control ring, and also you can get an adapter with the control ring for the EF mount lenses. Right now I have this set up for exposure compensation, which means the only way right now for me to change ISO on this camera is through the touch screen, which is fine here in California, but if you live in a colder area and you have to wear gloves, that may not work out for you. But then again, it's not like the touch bar on the EOS R would have helped with gloves anyway, So in terms of first impressions, that's pretty much it. And I like the body design, I like the additional grip that you can get, and the comfort level of using this camera will heavily depend on what kind of lens you use. And like I said, I just got this yesterday, so I haven't really had a chance to test out the battery level. It's rated at 250 shots, which is pretty terrible, but my guess is if you don't shoot any videos, or if you're just using this camera for traveling, and if you just turn it on once in a while to take a few shots, I think it'll be fine as long as you keep like maybe one extra battery with you all the time. So in the next few days, I'm going to be taking a look at this camera in more detail and compare this with my other cameras like the 60 Mark II. Yeah, it's basically the same sensor, but I'm interested to see if there's any difference in image quality, and perhaps I'll also compare the battery life and things like that. So if you want to see more of that, please subscribe, and that's it for me today, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.